Great. Okay, so tell me first of all, what's your history and how did you become a copywriter?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm originally from the Philippines, and I moved to the U.S. about 5 years ago to Los Angeles specifically, and I've always loved writing. Like even when I was in school, and my classmates would hate essays and reports, I was the weird kid who loved doing it. And so I always gravitated towards writing jobs, like even in the school paper and stuff like that. Anyway, when I moved to the US, I was fresh off of school, so I never had a real job. And when I moved to LA, I figured, hey, some TV station or some movie station would hire me for a writing job. But that never happened because I never had any real world experience. So I had to take jobs like as a secretary, as an assistant. And I did that for a couple of years, but a part of me still wanted to write for a living. So I started looking for unpaid writing jobs. And then that led me to an internship to this website where I wrote about social media and tech. And then, but it was unpaid, so I started looking for other jobs. And then I found the Examiner. And then that's when people really started to notice my work. I wrote about social media and tech on theexaminer.com. And after a few months of doing that, companies and startups and publicists actually started emailing me asking if I could write about them in my column. So, I would check them out. And if they were cool, if they were relevant to what I was writing about, yeah, I would cover them. And then, but see, the Examiner was still more of a hobby because it didn't really pay a lot of money. So I started looking for more ways to turn my skills into a business, into a high paying job or career at least. And that's when I found this book. It's The Well-Fed Writer by Peter Bowerman. Not to sound like a fangirl, but it changed everything for me. Like it completely changed my outlook towards the freelance writing lifestyle. Like I had no idea that writers could charge that much for a blog post or a press release. Like seriously, like he said like there were writers that got paid $500 for an article, and I was blown away. I was shocked because I had no idea that that was possible. So yeah, the welfare writer completely changed my outlook, and that's when after I finished reading it, that's when I started to really put myself out there. I worked on my website, I learned WordPress, and then I marketed myself to others, and that's how I kicked off being a freelance writer.
Okay, great. So you're just saying about how you market yourself to others. What methods do you actually use and what do you think is the most useful for you?
I do a lot of online marketing. I think the most useful for me is cold emailing potential clients. So what I do is that I write a lot for app developers and startups. Those are my clients. So I check out my app, the iTunes App Store for any cool apps that I liked and maybe I could potentially write for. And then I go to Angel List because that's where a lot of tech startups hang out. And I
Yeah.
find companies that I like that I think are cool, and I would email them. I would give them suggestions and about content. Like I think you should change your about page and to make it look like this, or add a blog. I would give like genuine suggestions, and then I would also offer my services. Like, oh, by the way, I'm a writer, so if you ever need someone and stuff like that, and that worked out pretty well. I know cold emails aren't usually effective, but I've had like a 30% response rate because I take the time to tailor my emails and not make it look like it was a canned pitch. And so
Yeah.
that got me a lot of experience. That got me a lot of clients. And then aside from cold emails, I do a lot of social media marketing. I have a Facebook page where I regularly post content and stories. And what I do on Facebook is that I like similar pages, and I like pages where I think my potential clients would hang out. And I would just comment on their posts, share them, like post, be as insightful as I can. And doing this actually landed me a gig with a European airline. So I asked them, so how did you find me? And said, oh, I saw your comment on this other Facebook page and I liked it. So I checked you out and they hired me. So I think, never underestimate like the power of connecting on Facebook. I think that's very useful. Same goes for Twitter. I just regularly post content. I follow entrepreneurs, startup founders because those are my people. And then whenever they have something relevant to say, I put them on lists, potential clients, and I just go through that every so often and try to respond when I have something to say. Um, yeah, content creation is key. I think you have to like regularly post blog posts on a regular basis. I'm not an SEO person, but I know that regularly updating your website and adding new content makes you look good, in Google's eyes, and that, publishing a post, every time you do that, you get more chances for people to find you. And so that really helps me get found. I read in your email you asked about offline marketing. My offline marketing strategy is pretty limited. I do have a stack of business cards with me at all times that I hand out on family reunions and when I hang out with my friends. Basically, I tell everyone I know what I do. And it landed me a job with my wedding DJ a couple of months ago. I told him I was a writer. I gave him my card. And after a few days, he contacted me to redo his website. So that worked out. So, yeah.
Cool. Do you still write for Examiner now?
Not anymore. Ever since I read The Well-Fed Writer and started doing my own thing, I kind of stopped writing for the Examiner. I haven't really been active on the site for a couple of years now, but from what I remember, it was fun, mainly because I genuinely liked what I was writing about, which was tech and social media. But the thing about the Examiner, though, it was when I was writing back then, it wasn't paying that much, so I was treating it like as a hobby, kinda.
Yeah.
And it was really more about the experience for me, and I wanted to put my work out there. In terms of pay, I don't remember the exact numbers. I think it was like $10-15 for 1,000 views, something in that ballpark. I don't know. I don't remember. But yes, I do think that, the Examiner is a pretty decent starting point if you want to get experience. It's pretty credible. It's not like the New York Times or anything like that, but it gets a lot of traffic, and I think it brings some credibility to the table because people actually started to come to me that, hey, I know you write for the Examiner. Would you consider covering us? So that's really saying something about the site.
Yeah, so you might not be making so much for the writing itself, but then when you consider Examiner as a marketing machine, it's pretty successful for you.
Yeah, it worked out really well for me, surprisingly. So, yeah.
Okay, so when you first started out, if you could go back and see your beginner self and give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Yes. This isn't the most practical or tactical advice. I would just tell myself not to be scared. I had a slow start freelance writing. I procrastinated a lot and think mostly it was because of fear. I was scared I wasn't ready. I was scared that people would laugh, or I would scare off clients when they hear how much I was planning to charge. And I stalled a lot, and I did a lot of thinking and contemplating. And, looking back, if I had to tell my past self something, I would just say take action sooner, or more, take aggressive action sooner. Putting it off won't make it less scary. Putting it off won't make it less difficult. So that's the advice that I would tell myself.
I think that's great advice, yeah. I mean, I used to put so much off because I was worried that I didn't have enough information to proceed.
Exactly.
So I would sit there and I'd go, I'm going to spend several months Googling this.
I know.
And then, by the time you've done all of that, even if you do eventually start making money, you think, it's still not really worth it for those 60 hours I spent Googling.
I know. And then the thing with doing so much research is that before you know it, you're stuck with so much information, you're paralyzed about what am I going to do? What am I going to try? So, yeah, I know
the information that you find never all matches up and all says the same thing.
I know. Yeah. Tell me about it.
Okay, so I was looking on your website yesterday, and Tweet Smarter, Not Harder. That sounds really interesting. Can you tell me a bit more about what happens on the course?
Yes, it's a mini course. It's about 15 minutes, and it just teaches people shortcuts so that they can be more productive. Like, I give them tools on what they can try so that they can find and follow relevant people. And then I teach them how they can find the right conversations using the search function and like a few tweaks with their browser so that they can, jump into the right conversation, because you don't want to read every single tweet in your stream, that just takes too much time. So it teaches people how to sort through the clutter, and then how to be more productive by automating your tweets using Buffer and Google Reader. So it's a pretty basic course, and it's designed for beginners. Actually, I'm thinking of taking it offline pretty soon, because it sort of doesn't align with where I want to take my business next. Because right now I'm working on another course, Copywriting 2.0. It's basically a course that's more in depth and teaches aspiring writers the step-by-step actions on how to do it, like how I became a freelance writer. So it's a more in-depth course, and I think it's kind of funny because you own the domain beafreelanceblogger.com. I own the domain beafreelancewriter.com. That's where I'm gonna host. That's where I'm gonna host the course. So it's in the works, but that's what I'm planning to do.
Okay, cool. Everybody have a quick swig of our drinks.
Yeah.
Do you want to just lay out for me a couple of the URLs where people can find you, like your Twitter URL and your blog URL?
Sure, yes. My business website is at crediblecopywriting.net. And then on Twitter, they can find me. I know my name is a little weird. My last name is a little weird, but it's Francesca, StaAna. That would be my Twitter handle. And then, for my upcoming course, it's just at beafreelancewriter.com.
Awesome. Okay, let me